Hey everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I'm your host, Mike Malatesta. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an entrepreneur who's founded and led 2 8-figure companies and acquired and integrated many businesses. At the moment, I'm invested in more than 75 companies, spanning the spectrum from startups to multi-generational businesses. I'm also an author, speaker, and lifetime learner. My mission is to study success in all areas of life. On this podcast, I explore stories of success in every episode and with every guest. What it means, why it's important, and of course, how it happens. Whether you're a student of success like I am, or you desire more success in your life, I want to expose you to the people, thinking, and actions that can help you achieve your goals. I want to be part of your education. I promise you that I will always respect the time you make to listen. My goal is to not waste 1 minute of it. My job is to help you become more personally and professionally successful. Every week, I will expose you to super successful people and ideas. With every guest, I will dig deep to tease out the most impactful information, the information that you care about, and the information that you deserve. I'm grateful to have you with me today, and I'm honored that you listen, subscribe, and share my episodes with your friends. That's what makes the show grow and impact more and more people. You can subscribe, follow, and learn more about me at MikeMalatesta.com. Today I'm fulfilling my promise to you with another amazing success story. Julie Traxler and Corey Harris are joining me on the podcast today. Julie and Corey are business coaches who have a passion for helping small business owners succeed. Having spent years in corporate America, watching high-priced consultants sell services that weren't needed, they started SB Pace with a mission to offer the value to each client, to never sell services that aren't needed, and to understand fully what a client needs before they ever try to sell anything. When the pandemic hit in early 2020, it was a sign that Julie and Corey had been waiting for. Nobody had been impacted more by the lockdowns than small business owners, and the desire to make an impact with the hardworking people who were struggling was the perfect impetus to form SB Pace. Julie has over 20 years of experience working with small business owners. She's led clients through acquisitions and mergers, always keeping the needs and priorities of the business owner in mind. Julie is an expert at project management, change management, communication, coaching, and mergers and acquisitions. As one half of the SB Pace team, Julie focuses on listening, understanding, and then solving. Corey has over 20 years of experience working with small business owners. He focuses on the processes that keep your business running smoothly. With a background in owning and operating restaurants, Corey knows what it is like to be a small business owner. He brings a strong background of logistics and operations knowledge to the team, as well as a deep understanding of finance and cash flow. Corey rounds out the SB Pace team with his analytical approach to business. Hey, Corey and Julie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us. We are happy to be on the show.
Yeah, you guys, listeners are in for a treat today because I connected with these two on Podmatch, I think it was, which is a podcasting platform that I just kind of got onto to, check out. And it's amazing how many different cool stories are out there. And you're going to hear one of those and maybe more down the road, but one of those great stories today. So, Julie and Corey, I start every one of my shows with the same simple question. How did it happen for you?
Right. I am going to say slowly is my answer, right? So, and by that, I mean, when we started SB Pace, we had this silly notion of if we build it, they will come. And that is not at all how it worked for us, right? There was, and despite the fact that we have been, entrepreneurs and done consulting for the better part of both of our careers, and we've always been in small businesses, we really didn't recognize we didn't realize what the uphill battle was going to be in starting the business, right? So, and it wasn't so much that we had started it during a global pandemic. It was that there were just bits and pieces that we didn't know and had to learn the hard way. And so it took us quite literally Mike, we got to, I can tell you the exact day. It was day 367 when I thought, okay, this is going to work. We know what we're doing. So, yes, 1 year and 2 days after we started, I was like, yes, things are now coming together. So it was slow. It was really slow for us, but it all, I mean, the time went very fast, but I kept thinking we would see positive revenue in like month 2 or 3. And it didn't happen until month 13.
Yeah, and our business was a response to the pandemic. So when we back at the beginning of 2020, I had just finished a contract, and I was actually living out of the state and moved back to Virginia, and um, we were just kind of hanging out. Julie had just moved to Virginia in February, March. The pandemic happened, and so we just kind of I was out of work, and then Julie had found herself out of work, and nobody was traveling for work. Nobody was hiring consultants to do any work because nobody knew what was going on. So we just started calling around and asking friends and family that we knew who owned small businesses, like if we could help them. Just kind of like, we've got skill set. What can we do to help you weather the storm? What can we do? Whatever. And so then that just kind of turned into us realizing that something that we already knew is that the community, the small business industry, let's say, it was just underserved by people like ourselves. It's not an easy industry, let's say, or a subset or of the economy to get into, because it's not it's not connected well. It's disjointed. Like you can't, it's really hard to find clients just because there's millions and millions of them out there who aren't advertising that they need help. They don't know they need help. They don't know they can get help. So that's kind of where we started, was just figuring out what we could do to help small businesses.
Okay. And what was it that brought the two of you together?
So we used to work together it was the last corporate jobs for both of us. We had worked for a food distribution company on their mergers and acquisitions team, and traveled 100% of the time to client sites. So the company that we worked for, serial acquirers, not serial integrators. And so we were the team that was brought in to integrate the acquisitions that they had made, and all those acquisitions were small businesses. So it was very beneficial for us because we got to learn front to back everything that was happening inside of these businesses. So it gave us even more small business knowledge. But we worked together. We have some of the same degenerate habits. So we became fast friends. And shortly after, when I left that company, probably about 6 months later, Corey left, and we started doing some consulting together on some clients. And then just, I was up in the Philadelphia area and was thinking about moving to Seattle because I have some family out there. And Corey's like, come to Richmond. It's a good area. And so I literally live across the street from each other. And we started a business, wrote a book, started a podcast, and pretty much spent all of 2020 like working on things together.
Okay, got it. And before I get more into that, which I'm definitely going to, I want to first of all ask you, what happened on day 367 that made you think, that you have that day so clearly etched in your mind?
We signed 3 clients.
Okay.
And one of them I was really confident we were going to. That was a planned meeting where I knew that was going to happen. The other 2 came completely out of the blue, where it was people that we'd been talking to in the past, and all of a sudden they reached back out. And one of them was literally like, hey, I'm ready to sign. He had previously told us he had decided not to do any work on his business. I'm not going to invest anymore in this. And we're like, okay. And my follow-up to him when he had said that he was not going to do anything else with this company was, well, listen, totally respect and understand that. Thanks for letting me know or letting us know. And if there's anything we can do, like as you are continuing to wind things down, any connections we can make, let us know. We've got some people in, fulfillment that we could probably hook you up with or whatever. Just made some offers to him and just said, best of luck, and let me know if you need anything. And it was probably like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then he just sent me a message and said, all right, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to sign this contract. I'm ready to pay you today. Send me an invoice. And I was like, well, whoa. And then the next one was as big of a surprise. So 3 in one day. And then I think we have like 3 more that are probably will sign very quickly here. So just things really started to switch in the blink of an eye.
Got it. Okay. So, well, congratulations on that, by the way. Corey, you had mentioned, or maybe it was Julie that mentioned the habits, like you guys, yeah, that was you, Julie, that mentioned the same degenerate habits. I can't let that go without exploring that a little bit.
No, she's just talking about gambling. We both like to gamble.
Okay, got it. Gambling.
The end of the football season is a real downer around here.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So Corey, when you said you started just talking to small business owners and you didn't really have sort of an agenda, you were just trying to, help wherever you could. What kind of questions were you asking, and what kind of answers were you getting?
The first question was always just, how can we help? Like, how are you doing? How can we help? What's going on? We had everybody from doctors and dentists to people who merchant services, retail, like all over the place. And so every industry was pretty, there were a lot of similarities, but there were a lot of differences as well. So it was just kind of, for a lot of people, it was more of like a therapy session than anything. It was what they finally have somebody who's willing to just listen to them complain about, or, just vent about what's going on. And because a lot of those people, they're surrounded by other small business owners, and that nobody wants to hear their sob story because they have the same one. So for us, there was a lot of that. But one of the interesting things that we kind of realized is that a lot of people were more prepared than they thought they were after they had a chance to sit down, clear the air and talk it through with some people of, oh, okay, things aren't that bad. I do have options. This isn't the end of the world. And that's the world that we live in now with the 24-hour news cycle and social media everywhere. It's like you just get flooded with negativity and just everything terrible. And nobody wants to just stop and say, hey, let's talk about everything that's going right. And for a lot of people, that was like, oh, okay, yeah, if things continue like this for 6 months, I'll be fine. We might have to tighten the belt a little bit, but outside of that, I'll be fine. And that was the big reaction that we got from most people who we talked to.
Okay. So these business owners or entrepreneurs were kind of up in their own head about doom or inadequacy or whatever, bankruptcy, whatever it was, or just fear, right? And you sort of talked them off the ledge, see, there's a bright side to this, or is that right?
Yeah, because for most business owners, I would say they're type A, they're control freaks, and this was just 100% outside of their area of expertise, their area of knowledge, their control, and it was brand new, and it was just something that nobody was they rolling with the punches was not something that they had to do previously,
Yeah.
The amount of, I think, uncertainty was extremely difficult for the majority of the small business owners that we spoke to. There were some who really leveraged and took advantage of that uncertainty and the unpredictability of what was going to happen, where some people realized they were shut down and their employees were collecting unemployment, and they used that to their advantage to be like, okay, well, this employee really wasn't performing that well. I'm not bringing them back. Sure. So they made some really smart moves. And a lot of the questions that we asked them, in addition to how are you positioned financially? Have you made pivots? Where do you need help? What can we do? A lot of it centered around that, how basically trying to get to the point of how well prepared are you for a disaster? What kind of plans do you have in place? What can you execute on? And what do you need to think about and build up for and think about for the next couple of, months or the long haul without it, because so many people didn't know, there was no end in sight, right? It felt like every day something was changing. And
yeah, it just kept getting kicked down the road.
Yeah.
It'll be a couple months, so it'll be longer on, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the business owners we talked to, she thought that she was really unprepared. Right. And, she's like, I'm really in trouble. And she literally, so we start, asking her all these questions, and Corey's the math guy. He's the numbers guy. So he's like working through the financials with her to see like, okay, how bad is it? What options are available to you? And as we're working through it with her, realized that what did she have, like 6 or 9 months worth of, she had like 9 months worth of savings to cover all of her bills without any impact. And just didn't realize that, because she was just thinking of, she was looking at it in all these other ways and was just kind of consumed with the uncertainty and not realizing like, I've got 9 months to figure things out. Do I want to blow through 9 months worth of savings? No, but if I have to keep my business afloat, I can. And in the end, that ended up being really, really comforting for her to know like, oh, wow, I'm doing way better than I thought.
And there's nothing like a crisis or a disaster or a pandemic to get you really clear about what's important in your business too. I'll bet you found with people like you mentioned, Julie, people that maybe weren't the best team members, but you could tolerate them because things were okay, and it's kind of harder to get rid of somebody than replace them or something. But when stuff gets really scary, whether it actually does or whether you think it does, you start thinking way more strategically, I guess, about the performance of your business than you might otherwise. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would. I don't know if that was question was for Julie or not, but
I'll for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's like there's the facing adversity is definitely a big thing. And especially as soon as the dust started to settle after the initial shock was over, I think everybody started to pivot, and they were looking for quick wins. They were looking for a way to kind of get control back over their business and their lives. And it's, what can I do? What can I do? Oh, I can do this. Oh, I've been looking to get rid of this employee for a long time. Now I'm just not going to rehire them. Or, I've been meaning to, we had one of my friends, she had two businesses and she had to close one down. Unfortunately, she had to close the one that she didn't want to close down, but because of some issues with leases and whatnot. But for her, she had expanded and she realized, she's like, you know what? I didn't think that was a good idea. So this kind of worked out where, I could just kind of go back to having just the one location instead of two. So, that was definitely a big part of what people were realizing, and I think entrepreneurs in general.
Right. And like thinking like, what days and hours do I want to work? Right. They got to modify all of those things. So there was a lot of upside that came out of the pandemic in terms of entrepreneurs being able to get really creative and actually settle more into the type of business that they wanted to run versus maybe the one that they ended up running. Because when you first start, you do a lot of things to get business, to get clients or customers in the door. You make some compromises along the way to sort of get where you want to be. And this was an opportunity for a lot of people to reset and be like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't want to work with that person, or I don't want to work with those kind of clients anymore, and get to reset and have a really good reason and not feel bad about doing it.
Sure. Yeah. When you're starving, everything looks good, right? Everything looks tasty, right? Because, so if you don't mind, I'd like to go back a little bit to your experience with, I think it was Performance Food Group, where you guys were working on integrating acquisitions, because I think there's lessons in integrating acquisitions that not only for people who want to grow their business, but in terms of messaging and culture and all the other things that tend to trip up a business, whether it's been an acquired business or whether it's a business that's sort of started with one person or two people and are now starting to grow and add people, and being with an acquisitive company and having the responsibility, if I understand it correctly, the two of you and maybe others having the responsibility to go in there and help really turn these entrepreneurial businesses into corporate divisions or new locations or whatever the case may be, that's hard work. So I'm just interested in both of you sharing your experience on what that was like and what was important about it and what you got out of it. Like what changed about you when you got into that kind of role, taking on those kinds of things.
You want to go first or want me to?
Go right ahead.
All right. I will say some of my favorite stories of my entire career come from that role at Performance. I have like over 10 years of experience in mergers and acquisitions and love that work, and specifically love that post-deal close acquisition integration piece of it, because it's all about the people, right? So Corey and I and four other people were we were called the business transformation team was the name of the team at the time, and we represented the business. So there was an IT team, we were business, and that was a really big benefit for all of the operating companies that we were helping to integrate into Performance's corporate culture and technology ecosystem and everything, in that we represented the business. We landed on site, we stayed with them until after the integration was complete. And I mean, we stayed for a couple of weeks after, making sure that everything went well. But it was a people first approach, right? So understanding the people on the team, understanding the strengths and the weaknesses. We always started with a SWOT analysis to really understand, what was the secret sauce? Because you have to think, because Performance was, and it still is, I would say, a serial acquirer, they're acquiring faster than they're integrating, and so companies are sitting for a while, right? And so when we would get there, we would always ask, like, hey, what is it that makes you so great? Like, why did Performance buy you? Because those are the things we want to make sure we preserve, and we want to highlight those and make sure that everybody in the team is still feeling really good about them. So we emphasized the SWOT. We focused really heavily on the change management and the communications aspect. And we worked end-to-end processes, which is really Corey's sweet spot. I was more on the people and the change side and managing that. And I think the biggest lessons came at the leadership level, because it's really hard to go from being a business owner to being an employee in your own company. And most people, when they are acquired, they have this sort of, romantic notion that it's going to be easier and that they're going to really enjoy being an employee, because being an owner is hard. I mean, we all know owning a business is hard, but what they quickly learn is it's harder to not be able to make the decisions that you used to be able to make, to not have the control you used to be able to make, to not protect your people the way you used to be able to do it. And so lots of coaching around the leadership and figuring out, in many instances, an exit strategy for the leader for them to leave. And but there's a lot of, the technology piece is the part that everybody thinks about when it comes to that acquisition and integrating them in. But it's the people piece and the process piece that are really the important part of it.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna jump on there. Especially for me, the people part was important, because prior to joining the Julie's team, I was working independently for the company, and I oversaw, for lack of a better word, 8 warehouses, and they were like the stepchild of the company. The two sister companies that made up Performance Food Group, neither of them really wanted to own this kind of sub company or take care of them or whatever. And so I got brought on to basically, I was their one resource, or, like their main resource for help when it came to anything they needed, from technology, process, training, etc. They were on their own ERP. It was the Wild West. They could do whatever they wanted. They had no oversight or anything. So when I came on, part of the job was converting all of those warehouses over onto a common ERP. So for me, I had been working with these people for a while already, and I already knew the team, and it took me a while to build their trust, because the last thing anybody wants to hear is, hey, I'm from corporate, I'm here to help. And and so when I walk in the door and I'm like, hey, I'm from corporate, I'm here to help, they actually like, oh, he is here to help. And so just making sure that we weren't steamrolling over what they were currently doing, because the food service industry, from across the board, whether you're producing, distributing, or selling it, the margins are razor thin. So the smallest like break in service, the smallest error here or there could like seriously impact a company. So yeah, that was, for me, it was just making sure that everybody was as whole as we could make them as we were rolling out the new technology, new processes, and all of that.
And were either of you or both of you involved in the pre-acquisition part? You know, so that you had an understanding of what was being conveyed to, you know, between performance and the potential acquired company or any. So you came in. She's shaking her head, so I'm thinking.
Yeah, that would make sense, but no.
Came in afterwards. Yeah, because so I've been involved in probably 20 or so acquisitions, like 18 to 20 on the buy side and a couple on the sell side, and it's maybe this gets talked about a lot, but I don't hear it very often. Where buying the company, the financial transaction. And even the people part of buying the company is often so much easier than the post buy and the actual integration. I mean, the financial terms, the capital structure, all that stuff. You know, okay, the math works. We're gonna go ahead and do this. Oh, and by the way. I'd love to, like you, I think you said it, Julie. I'd love to join your company because, I'm tired of running this business, or I want to diversify, I want more time with my family, whatever the reason is. But the thing that it doesn't get spoken about often, in my experience, really, really often, is what's going to be expected of me after this closes. And not just me as the old owner, but also my team, because I think the expectation is, we're going to buy you. And guess what? You're going to be able to run everything the way you have. And I'm thinking, I'm the deal maker thing on here. And we're just going to bring some systems in, to help and do this kind of thing. But a lot of times what that means to the person saying it and what it means to the person hearing it are like a wide moat that you guys then would have to come in and close. Am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, we're literally working with a client right now who is getting ready to exit, and they're in the LOI state, the letter of intent, and we are like working really hard to make sure that this owner, this husband and wife team, understand like first off, due diligence is disruptive. It's disruptive to the target. It's very disruptive. And then once the deal closes, most small business owners, and that's who Performance was buying. That's who we work with now, right? Their instinct is, I want to protect my people. But what we like work really hard to communicate is, you're not going to have a say in it after, right? You can ask for it, but you have no control over it, right? And where there's duplication, they're most likely going to take their employee that they already have, right? They might have a role for your people, but they may not. There's no guarantees when that happens. And that whole, it's such a slippery slope, because you increase your likelihood of success with the acquisition and reaching that full revenue recognition if you keep the owner on for 6 to 12 months, right? If that person stays in their role, the success of that acquisition goes way up. But it is so hard for that owner to go through that period, and they don't have a really good understanding of what that means for them, what's going to happen. And I've been through a lot of them where the former owner doesn't make it that full 6 to 12 months, whatever was in the agreement. They don't make it. They can't. They're like, I can't do it. And it's not uncommon, but it's, and when they do stick around, they're like, I'm going to stay for the employees because they have such loyalty to their employees. But it is very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah. And it's all about reading the fine print too. when it boils down to it, because you have a company, a larger company, and coming in to swoop up and purchase a smaller company, and you've got a mom and pop, or maybe it's 20, 30 employees, something like that. The bigger company, they come in, they've got their normal legal paperwork, they've got whatever it is, they flash this number in front of everybody that looks, oh, that'd be great, let's do that. And then you dive into it, you're like, oh well, no. Like, here's all the things that we need to change, because otherwise these are all the problems that you're going to run into. It would be nice if you could just, they're just going to cut you a check and you just walk away, but that's not how it happens.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate you diving into that a little bit, because I think it's important that people understand how, because, everybody that's starting a business is going to hopefully sell it at some point, right? Or pass it, sell it either to someone in their family, to their employees, or to someone else. And it's been my experience that the sooner you get to understand what that is going to mean, the better you're going to, one, position your business, and then as you grow it, and then two, the better prepared you're going to be when that eventuality ends up happening.
No, absolutely. When we help entrepreneurs launch new businesses, one of the exercises that we do really early on is building exit strategies.
Right.
Like, what are the conditions under which you would exit? What are the triggers? Take the emotion out of it as much as possible, and at least have them thinking about, that begin with the end in mind, because that's really the way to do it. Because then you just know and revisit it annually. Like, okay, are these still true? Are these still my triggers? Would I still exit if this happened? And just adjust and keep moving forward.
Got it. And Corey, did I read too that you've owned some restaurants or been in the restaurant business as well, as not in food service like performance, but in the restaurant business?
Yes, I have. And I'm actually working on making the mistake of going back into that business here soon.
Okay, so yeah, let's dig into that a little bit. What are you thinking?
All right, good question. So prior to my corporate world life, I was a partner here in Richmond in a small chain of cafes. So it was coffee and the full menu for the most part, and like a retail piece of the business as well. And I was brought on initially just to help manage the initial location, but the woman who owned the business, she offered me equity in the business to help her grow. So I came on as a partner, helped grow it to 3 stores. We were working on the 4th store, and I just got burned out. I had been working at that point in restaurants for 14 years, ever since high school, and it's all I really knew. And so I left, and I got blown away by the corporate world for sure, in terms of I get weekends off, every weekend off. You mean I don't have to come into work? I will, so that was a weird concept for me for a while. But for restaurant people such as myself, it's just something that's in your blood. So a couple of years ago, I just kind of got the itch again, where I was just like, I want to get back into the business. And it's one of the pieces of advice that I give to anybody who says that they want to open a restaurant is don't, because it's hard work. It's hard work. You have the potential to make a lot of money, but you have the potential to fail just as easily. And it literally has to be in your personality in order to do it, because people, they'll entertain friends once a week or something like that. They're like, oh, I love to cook. And it's like, well, you're going to hate cooking if you open a restaurant. You're going to hate people if you open up a restaurant. You're never going to want to entertain, and so so that's that. But I, in the spring of, so back in towards the end of 2019, I was working on a deal, and in the spring of 2020, so this was February, I had a lease in my hands for this location here in Richmond, and I was talking to my realtor, and I was like, let's just slow play this and just see how everything is going to kind of pan out. I don't feel comfortable signing a lease right now, obviously, in February of 2020. And then we know how that turned out. So I dodged that bullet.
Yeah.
But the owners of that property have just been clamoring to get myself and the concept into their space. And so it's still vacant, and we are like, they came back with just a deal that I couldn't turn down. And everything's kind of turning around now. So we're hopefully in the next couple of weeks going to we should have a lease signed and start build out. And we're looking to have the restaurant open by the end of, or the fall of this year.
And same kind of restaurant, a cafe sort of thing, or something?
This is a full service restaurant. Yeah.
Full service.
So it's a different concept, but yeah, it's a full.
I applaud you. That's brave. And hopefully brilliant as well. Because like there's a pent up demand, that's for sure. People, or at least it feels like there is. So let me get back to SB Pace. So 2020, you guys sort of get started with these conversations. How long did it take you? I know you said 367 days before you were like, oh yes, but to come up with the business model that you actually are helping business owners with. So you kind of got into it. You were asking these questions. You were sort of collecting information, if I heard you right, and then that, I'm assuming, developed into, okay, here's the way that we can make the maximum impact, positive impact on business owners.
Well, we've been through a number of iterations. I will say that we pivot fast. Yeah. And we initially started off with, a couple of services that we were offering. And then we kind of moved more towards thinking like helping with launching businesses, which we didn't really think was going to be a thing, right? When we first started, we didn't realize like the two most common areas that we help businesses with: people who want to start a new business and people who are in that, exit phase where they're either looking to acquire somebody else or they're ready to exit themselves. And so the start and the finish of businesses is really where we've had most of the work that we've done has been in those areas. It took us a while to like really find our groove with that and get exactly the right services. And I think everything kind of really started to fall together probably in the November timeframe, where I would say November, late, like mid-November is where we kind of found our voice in terms of this is who we are, right? We kept talking about, we love the concept of owning our own company, and we can do what we want and we can say what we want, but we were still kind of marketing to please everybody. And in November, it was a conversation over the weekend because we were helping a client who just wasn't listening to anything we said. And it just didn't feel like he was really ready for what was coming. And so at that point, I think it was something Corey said to me, like, he's like, from now on, let's only work with people who are actually ready to do the work. And I was like, yeah. And so, we came up with the motto, SB Pace, when you're ready for success. Right. So it's so much of what we do requires such hard work from the entrepreneur, the small business owner up front. And so we've gotten much better at explaining to people like, look, this is a heavy investment of your time up front to do what you want to do. Like if you want a growth strategy, yes, we can do it, but we can help you. You have to do much of the work. And this is what it's going to look like for you from a time commitment. So if you're ready, let's do it. We've gotten smarter. We've made some mistakes along the way we've like, okay, well, we're not going to do that again. Right. And then when we do annual strategic planning, we sat down in December and had like 3 or 4 sessions where we walked through, basically, we kind of did a recap of the year. What were we really good at? What didn't go so well? What do we need to stop doing? What should we do more of? All that stuff. Mm-hmm. And when we built out the strategic plan for 2021, we built a plan that's designed around getting more what we would call mailbox money, right? So courses where we've got this, we do the work and then we can get recurring revenue from it, because we wanted to position ourselves that we're still going to work with clients. We need to be really, really aware of what's going to happen to Corey's schedule once he starts working on the restaurant. And so we still need income coming in. We still want to work with some clients and help people, but we also need to figure out what's our strategy for being able to do that restaurant and keep SB Pace growing and helping small business owners. And so we were really strategic about our plan for this year.
Got it. Yeah. So you're basically scaling your intellectual property in a way that you can impact more people without you physically having to maybe coach them through every part of it. It's not, am I getting that right? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And for, I mean, kind of back to the way that we changed our approach, and it goes back to like what I said about restaurants, but it's just small business in general, which Julie's talked about. Julie talked about was that owning a business is hard and nobody's going to do the work for you. And you could pay somebody like us to do the work for you, but you're not going to be successful. So, what we tell people that, often when we're talking to them is that if you're not willing to put the work in, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, because I really like that you're saying that to everybody, because if you don't invest in anything yourself and you expect someone from the outside to come in and fix or prep or whatever your business for the future, and you're just going to sort of be a bystander, that doesn't work anywhere. That doesn't work in anything.
I'll tell you the worst phone call we ever got from a client that we've been working with, where we're helping them with a growth strategy. They had a pretty aggressive plan, and we're like, all right, let's do it. And he called me one morning to tell me that him and his wife had a conversation, and they realized that Corey and I were more invested in their business than they were.
Oh, wonderful. Jeez.
I was like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So what did you actually do as you were thinking about, this thing you said, we only want to work with people who are ready? How do you get to the root of readiness now? How do you sort of matrix your way through when you have a discussion with somebody to determine, okay, this person is ready for us?
So from a marketing perspective, in some ways we're a little bit antagonistic in terms of, talking directly to people about, like, we see what you're doing. Now you just need to see it yourself, right? We see that you are, you're working 18 hours a day, and that's stupid. You don't have to, right? There are solutions to that. So we're a little antagonistic in some of our approaches in terms of the way that we market and talk about what we're able to do. But we're also much better we realized we caught some really lucky breaks early on with clients that we had been courting and really thought we wanted to work with. And we're like, we dodged a bullet there, because we would have had to drag them kicking and screaming. And, we had a client that was, things are wrapped up with him now, but he was very, it was tough, because as much as he wanted it, he wasn't ready to be an entrepreneur. And so we had to do a lot more heavy lifting. So we just ask a lot of questions up front in terms of, their goals and what they're prepared to do, and making sure that they really, really understand what they're doing. And we make them pay up front now.
Right? I was hoping you were going to get there, because I was going to ask you that question.
Oh yeah. We've had to learn that the hard way too, right?
Yeah.
Where you're nice and you're like, oh yeah, well, you can pay us over time. And then all of a sudden now, in addition to, all the other things that we have to do as small business owners, I'm like, well, never in my wildest dreams did I envision that I would be the collections department, but I am.
Sure.
And I think that for especially industries like ours, but any kind of service industry like that you need to, Julie had started talking about that, the initial interview that you have, the first couple of conversations, like, you need to interview your client as much as they're interviewing you. And I mean, we had 3 calls in the past week with potential clients, all looking for very similar services. And 2 of the 3 seem like they are going to be, good to go. Like we could work with them. And one of them, we're going to have the conversation that if you spend money with us, you're just throwing it away. Unless you're willing to commit to X, Y, and Z, we don't want to take your money, because you're not going to get any value out of it.
Well, and that actually might be a good strategy for convincing the person that they really need to move forward too, by telling them, "Hey, you're not ready to move forward." What do you mean I'm not ready to move forward? And I can be ready to move forward, and yeah, there's nothing that says serious like writing a check, right? You write a check, I'm probably a lot more serious than just can I, get on the phone with you and see what I can get for free, right?
Interesting. It's an interesting conundrum for when you're the person who's providing the service, right?
Yeah.
Is there's this notion of, oh, like if you're doing courses, for example, right? Like, okay, so let's say we have a course that's available and people buy it and they don't do anything with it. Well, yeah, we got money for it, but that doesn't help. It doesn't help the small business owner at all.
Right.
And it doesn't help us, because if you didn't do the course, you're never going to tell anybody else to go do the course, right?
Yeah,
So
there's no testimonial in it.
right. So we
There's no
want people to
validation.
do it.
Right.
Yeah. And I think most people think, oh, if I create something and I can just sell it over and over again, it doesn't really matter what happens with it as long as I get the money. But it's such a short-sighted way to look at it. You really want people to benefit from what you're putting out there.
So when I first started reading about you guys, there were a few things that made me think, yeah, this is something I want to do. One was, the book, the podcast, all of this starting up in a relatively short period of time. And now I've learned more about, how, Julie, you had to move and, so I'm even more impressed about that. And then there was this other thing I read where, I think this is probably on your website, I'm not sure, but where your goal is to inspire 1 million small business owners in the next 10 years. And whenever I read something like that, whether you call that a moonshot or a mission or whatever, I think to myself, okay, so those are people who are really serious. So before I get into the book and the podcast, I want to get into that statement, because I don't know what inspire means to you, and I'd like to know what it means to you. And I also don't know how you define small business owners, and I'd like to understand and connect those two into that very powerful statement that you have.
So I think it says impact 1 million.
Impact. Did I say inspire? And that, yeah, okay, impact. Okay. Well, in any event, same question.
Yes. So impact 1 million small business owners, and the reason that it came to be is, 2020 was just this god awful year for small businesses, right? Like, it felt like at every turn somebody was trying to punish small business owners just for wanting to have a dream and do their own thing. And so much of what we did last year, when we did a lot of work for free last year for people, one, to try and, build our name and get the brand awareness out there, but also because there were a lot of people who just couldn't afford to pay for help. And we're like, well, we've got some runway, so let's help people. And it just feels really good to be able to give back and to know that we are playing some role in small businesses staying in business and being able to move forward, whatever that looks like. So that's why, like, helping people start a business is really fulfilling for us. So impact, it could be something as simple as, they're regularly reading our blogs or listening to the podcast and getting takeaways and tips from that, because we try and offer tips in everything that we do. A lot of our social media is built around providing information on how business owners can be better business owners and things that they can do. We try to sell very little and show the value of what we do. I do a lot of work on Clubhouse, hosting rooms and talking on Clubhouse to get more and more awareness, not just to SBPs, but to, things that people can do to improve their small business. So I did a rough calculation at the end, at some point, I think it was the end.
We always get concerned when Julie's doing calculations, but
he's not lying.
Yeah. Well, no, but because she initially said that number to me and I'm like, you're crazy. Like that, that sticker shock on that, when she's like, we're going to do this, but then she broke it down, and then we started expanding it over 10 years and talking about what impact really means. And so, for example, one of your listeners can listen to this podcast and they had this crazy notion that they wanted to open a restaurant, and maybe I convinced them not to. but that's an impact that we're making. Or, maybe they're going to spend a little more time researching it before they do, because it's not just, it's not just fun and games. So, once we kind of broke it down that, across of, oh, well, it's this many people, and these people are going to tell this many people, and these people are going to tell this many people, and, just how it can kind of exponentially grow is where, we want to make that impact.
Okay, got it. Are you familiar with a guy named David Meltzer? Dave Meltzer. It doesn't matter. He's a very, very popular podcaster. He's a sports agency with Warren Moon. But anyway, so his goal is to impact 1 billion people. And whenever anyone asks him about it, he says, which I'm glad something similar to what you said. The way I'm going to impact 1 billion people is by impacting 1,000 people who impact 1,000 people who impact 1,000 people, and you get to 1 billion, really fast with that math, Julie. So it's so okay, I got it, and I love that as an aspiration, or as I said, moonshot, or whatever you guys decide to call it. So let's talk about the book and the podcast. That's like, I've been trying to write a book for a long time, and it's not done yet. And here you guys come along and pop out a book in like what appears to be no time. So yeah, how'd you do it?
It was an interesting process. Corey says he'll never write another one with me, but I think he will.
No, I said period.
Oh,
it does matter who's with.
Oh, okay.
I don't ever want to write another book.
So we initially we hired somebody who helped us map out the entire book. Corey had a concept for what he wanted the book to be. I had a different one. And by the time we were done working with the guy who helped us map it out, we were writing the exact book that Corey thought of. And so Corey's like, why did we just pay this guy to help us do this? Right. But essentially he just gave us some really great tools for figuring out exactly how to lay out the book. And then the approach that we took was we figured out what we thought was going to be the structure, and then built the outline from there and started to fill in the outline. And then, we started the book, in like mid-April?
Yeah. And it took us 3 or 4 months start to finish, with design and the workbook and everything that went along with it. We were lucky in the sense that we didn't have any clients really at the time. So we had time on our hands. But yeah, it was an interesting process. And Julie and I both read that book front to back a dozen times, 24 times at least. Because it's, you have to read the book, get the edits, go back, read it again. And so it can be a very painstaking process, especially if you want to do it right and do it well. But for us, like we made it very public about the book that we're writing, the topic, the content, and about when it was going to come out. Not, this fall. It's going to be out in August of 2020. So that way we had that public accountability as well, to where we set a date. We're like, all right, well, we got to hit the date.
Yeah. And we learned really quickly, like the writing process that worked really well for us. Right. And, I for as bad as I am at math, I'm actually worse at grammar. Right. And so, I took the first pass at writing, filling in information, and then Corey came in behind, added more context, cleaned up my bad grammar. And then we just iterated through the entire book that way and went through it a couple of times. It got to the point where I'd be like, you can't even tell who wrote which sections unless it's like a personal story. You just have no idea who did the writing. And that's the way we handle our blogs still, is one writes, the other one edits, we clean it up. And so it's super collaborative, and we think very differently. So we've had, we're working on a course right now we're releasing next Monday. That's on the 12th. And we have the same process with the book, in that we were working on something and we have to remember to take a pause and talk through the flow and how things are working, because we even, between the two of us, we'll be like, no, I thought we were doing it this way, or this is what it means to me. And then we come back, we're like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And we can, move forward from there. So really iterative, a lot of collaboration and communication. And I think the moment that I knew that we were probably overachievers on some level was I was talking to a friend that I hadn't spoken to in several years, like maybe in like the August timeframe. So we'd started recording episodes for the podcast, but hadn't released anything yet. The book was out. We'd started the business. We were working on this course that we were going to be releasing, this workshop type thing. And I'm on the phone with a friend and she says to me, "Hey, what have you been up to?" And I'm like, "Oh, I moved to Richmond and, Corey and I started a business. We wrote a book and we're recording a podcast. We've got this course coming out." And she's like, "Wait." And in my head, I'm thinking, God, there has to be more. Like, there has to be more that we've done. Like, this feels like nothing. And she said, "I've barely gotten out of my pajamas since March." Yeah. Right. And someone else asked us like shortly after that, "Do y'all ever do anything that doesn't go straight to the deep end of the pool? Do you ever just like kind of wade your way in?" And I'm like, isn't this how everybody works? But I guess not.
No, it's not how everybody works. And you should know that by all the people you've talked to in your business so far, this business owners. No, not everyone works like that at all. So congratulations on that. And what's the book called and what's the podcast called and what are you trying to accomplish with the podcast?
So the book is called Seriously Now What? A Small Business Guide to Disaster Preparedness. Disaster preparedness. Did I say that right?
You did say it right.
Okay. Yeah. So it walks the business owner through how to build a strong foundation in their business all the way through to creating like an actual plan to respond to a disaster, to be proactive instead of reactive. And then our podcast is called BizQuick. That's BizQuik. So BizQuick podcast. And we, Julie and I just bring on small business owners and experts and kind of just cover a different topic each week. We, help troubleshoot problems. We provide tips and tricks. We, all across the board, you name something that a small business owner has to deal with. And we've most likely covered it already. There's a few areas we've yet to hit, but we released that in September. And we put out 2 episodes a week and they're 20 to 30 minutes long. So they're easy listens.
Okay. And you have guests on, or are you guys just talking through the various things together?
We usually have guests. This week we have back-to-back episodes that are just him and I. We released one recently called The Failure Files, which was all about how people think about failure and how it's got such a negative connotation with it. It's really, failure is such a great thing to encounter. And so we cover that, and we've got one coming up on time management, but we almost always have guests on. Yeah.
Okay, super. So Julie, this is a question that's a kind of a little tangent here, but I listen to Seth Godin's podcast most weeks, and I noticed that you participated in the his altMBA program, and I hear them talk about that all the time, but I don't really know what it is. And I kind of thought, well, I've never seen that before with someone I'm talking to, so I'll ask, what is it, and is it value? What kind of value did you get from it?
So it is this, I want to say it's a 5-week program. I did it in like 2018, I believe is when I went through it.
Okay.
And it's honestly, it's like an accelerated MBA, like a mini MBA, right? So you move through, sort of concept of, businesses and working together as teams. You build out presentations, and I would say worth it. Yeah, I developed some friendships that are, lifelong friendships that I still talk to these people and see them. Really great people. The biggest thing that I learned from it is this. I learned, I had a massive improvement on my ability to give and receive feedback, right? So he talks a lot about the notion of, generous feedback and how to give it, and how to really help people excel. I learned a ton in there. I'm glad I took it, and anybody who is considering it, I say, do it. It's absolutely worth the investment. It was a really interesting approach. It was great. It was a great experience for me.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Sorry to go on that tangent, but I thought, I just gotta ask. So I appreciate it. And I love I just love the way he sort of approaches things. So I figured it would be good.
I just heard the other day that Seth Godin will go on anybody's podcast if they have 100 episodes recorded and released, because that says to him that you are committed to it, you have follow through, and that you are doing everything you can to make that podcast work. And so,
Oh, is that right?
I'm like, I think we're on like probably like episode 70, 75-ish.
I was just about to count.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm asking him. That's going to be our ask. When we hit 100, I will reach out to Seth and ask him to come on our podcast.
Well, thank you for that clue. I'm going to ask him too. Why not?
Yeah. The worst he could do is say no.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's just like everybody. That's what's so nice about podcasting. It's like, I'll do it, or no, I won't. Okay, fine. And let's, yeah. So, how do people, like, who should be calling you, and how do people reach you? So if I'm a business owner, and what do I need to be experiencing to be, and serious about, to be in your wheelhouse, and how should I connect with you?
Well, like if you want to be serious and like what you're looking for.
Yeah. Like I'm a perfect candidate for your help. What do I look like?
So, I mean, you're definitely, a small business owner, somebody who's ambitious, somebody who's willing to do the work, somebody who's realistic, and willing to take direction. A lot of times it's, again, it's that entrepreneurial spirit. You have a type A, I can do whatever I want. And then you have people that are, they ask for help, but they won't take the advice that they give, that they're given. So just being humble about it and understanding that you don't know, what you do well. So if you create a product, you provide a service, that's great, but you know that you need help in other areas, and that you're willing to look for that help and ask for that help and improve upon what it is that you do. And ultimately, we're not looking for anybody who wants a crutch, for their business, who needs us. Like we want to be hired to be fired. We don't want, we don't want to, I mean, obviously we would love to help a business that we start 2 years from now grow, expand, whatever, but we're not looking for 12, 18-month contracts. We're, to teach a man to fish type approach.
Yeah. Or come back in stages as they implement and have success. And okay.
Yeah, exactly. I would also say this. So entrepreneurs who want to start a business, but don't know how to get started, or they know enough but want to make sure that they're building something that's built to last, that's really has a very strong foundation, that's really core to almost everything that we do. And the biggest thing is I think that successful entrepreneurship and small business ownership is where desire and ambition meet, right? So many people have the desire to do something and they don't have the ambition. Mm. You have to have the ambition, because desire is just not going to get it done. Desire will only take you so far. And most people only have desire. They don't have the ambition. So you got to have the ambition.
That's great advice. Well, how do you want people to connect with you, and where are you geographically? I mean, I know you're in Virginia, but you can work with people anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't even really have any. We have clients in Northern Virginia, but we don't have any clients in Richmond. Yeah. So really, we work with clients that are anywhere. And people can find us on LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we have a YouTube channel, because we are running an experiment called Project 365, where we're posting every day a video on our YouTube channel. Everything's under SB Pace. We didn't get the same exact spelling on our exact username on every channel, but it's SB Pace, and you'll find us.
Yeah, and all of that's on our website. So.
Oh yeah, I always forget about that.
I just go to sbpace.com. All of our links, everything's out there.
Got it. 365 videos. That's ambition. See, you're walking the walk.
Yes, yep. We are. Every day for 365 days, we are releasing a new video. 3 minutes or less that answers a hot question around being a business owner. In the entire month of May, Mike, the entire month of May is on mergers and acquisitions.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check that out then. Well, Corey, Julie, thank you so much for being on the show. Congratulations on your success and your aspiration to impact 1 million small business owners in the next 10 years. You're going to be busy, and I think you're going to do it too. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to know you guys and share your story.
Thanks for having us on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How'd It Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How'd It Happen podcast.